these paintings that I make, I start with my cell phone camera. I take pictures of views or aspects of the neighborhood that I live in that I like, and then I take them to a printer and I have them print them up as big as they can make them. And then I take acrylic medium and I put it on raw plywood, and I put the image on upside down, and I let it dry overnight. And then I come back with a belt sander and I sand off all the paper so there's nothing left but the ink. And that's my cartoon. Instead of making a sketch, I do that instead. And then I start with layers and layers and layers and layers of Damar varnish and pigment, with a little bit of pigment and a lot of varnish. And I build it up, and things I don't like, I wait overnight and then I sand it off and start again until I get all the effects that I chose. And I trying to work in a sort of a pre-impressionist style, because I think in the neighborhood where I live, there's an interesting thing going on whereby the post-industrial city, Vancouver, was where my city, where all these skyscrapers are and stuff, was a big forest, a giant jungle, and they chopped it all down and used the money that they made from all that wood to build these concrete apartment buildings, and they built them 50, 60 years ago, and I keep noticing as I walk around my neighborhood that the jungle is always trying to come back. And so I try and paint the buildings as if they're in a state of entropy. You know, they're starting to decay, and it is kind of starting to decay my neighborhood a little bit. And that the forest is always constantly coming back with the skunks and the coyotes and the deer walking down the street, and the Stanley Park is only a couple of blocks away, and it keeps trying to creep into the neighborhood. They come down my street with chainsaws trying to knock the trees back every year. And I got this notion that, you know, when people like Pizarro and stuff like that in the mid-1800s left Paris and went out to the country to sort of document the peasantry, invariably in those paintings you'd always see like a smokestack in the background, or a steamboat going up the river or something. So when they were painting this peasantry, they were also painting the death of the peasantry, because the peasants all went and worked in the factories and built the big cities and moved into the cities, and now I think in a sense we're at the other side of that, where the industrial part of Vancouver has kind of left, and what's left behind is this sort of on the verge of decaying city. And so I try and paint the buildings like they're old and the forest like it's new. And that's basically what it is. And I try and use the same kind of colors that those dudes used to use. And I name them in the same way. So I've been using this technique for a long time. I started using it probably almost a decade ago. Started fiddling around with transfers, and at first I painted right over top of the Xeroxes and on paper, and used the tracings and stuff like that, and then I sort of figured out this way of putting it on the plywood, and because in my sort of day job, I work with a lot of construction equipment, I started to think about, you know, wanted my work to reflect my real work, so I use a lot of industrial tools, a lot of industrial chemicals and stuff to make the images look the way they do.